We missing somebody again?
You're good.
Stephen, we're gonna.
Well, welcome, everyone. Can I get a motion calling the meeting to order?
So moved.
We're going to skip over the reviewing of the minutes. We'll look at that at our next meeting. Any board member comments? Yes.
So I'd like to report on the CPC public forum that was just a week ago Tuesday. It was very well attended, very informative. Jason Molina did a fantastic job outlining exactly what the CPC does and what it'll mean to the Affordable Housing Trust. They had signs up all over the room. I think we've both focused in on the affordable housing part of the CPA, and people could vote on what projects that they like to see accomplished. And what was interesting is that what got tied for the top amount of votes was to bring the housing for the 25 to 35-year-old group. And we got to make some meaningful connections with our friend in the audience from Habitat for Humanity, and we got to chat with the other members of the CPC, and it's going to be a great group to work with.
Yes, and my opinion was that I think that we will be great partners, and we will be working closely together for the years to come.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
As long as they want to give us money.
Well,
they have to.
It's there, it's earmarked, and I think it's just a great opportunity for us
Agreed.
to utilize and work as good partners. So, next on the agenda, we're going to just discuss, get some feedback on the action plan. I know that we had about a dozen of them out there, and thank you, Mr. Cahill, for uploading them, and I think I burned out my printer, but I think it was for good use here. There's a lot of information there, and just looking for feedback from all of the members.
It doesn't have much. I just think after looking at the other towns, we got to find our own way.
Yeah, I think,
What's going to work for us.
Mr. Chairman, might I just make a comment?
Sure.
I mean, one that stood out for me of all of these, I actually really like the Amherst plan, which I'll draw your attention to.
Yep.
I like it because they do two things. They have a short-term priority list, and they also have a long-term on top of that. So they have that first year kind of down pat, like here's what we're going to do, here are the concrete things, exactly what we're going to get done in that first year. And then at the same time, they take that kind of longer-term picture in that same plan. And I kind of really like that approach, especially as we kick off this kind of inaugural first year or two. I think that's really important to have that kind of, here's what we really want to get off the ground doing, and then kind of have that bigger picture view. And of course, similar, I mean, and who's to say, just like, you know, similar to what the CPC plan is doing, is that as that kind of the following years unfold, this committee couldn't then add those detailed level actions year to year within that kind of framework of that bigger picture. And I think, I'll just call it Amherst was the one that kind of jumped out at me. I know it's the letter A, it starts at the top, but I did read the rest. But it was, I thought it was well done. And we'll talk later, Mr. Chairman, or we can talk now, it depends, it's up to you, of course, about kind of some of the findings that myself and the Assistant Town Planner, Ron McAllister, found in terms of that. But I'll let the four of you lead the discussion on that. And
I was impressed with Amherst, too. It was not what I expected. It was better. So I thought it was going to be college town out there, and it wasn't. I didn't think so. I thought they did a good job with it.
I pulled Amherst, Grafton, and Westboro. And I kind of like the Amherst. I like the little short-term and long-term goals. And no criticism to our neighbors in Westboro, but there wasn't a lot of priorities. They have their near-term priorities, but I kind of like the setup of the Grafton and Amherst.
And I agree. You know, there was a lot to read, a lot to take in, but But, you know, one thing that I would like to see is on the goals that we have, that we can measure them and not just just have it open-ended. You know, we want to know what we're going to do, what the goals are for year one, so that we know whether we achieve them or not. We can check off the box, or if not, readjust and, you know, work on that for years 2 and 3. And then, you know, definitely have that 5-year strategic plan. I think it's key to have that in place as well, so that, you know, we have the roadmap set, and then we know what we're doing in the coming years.
Yeah, I would agree with that approach as well. I think we're all on the same page related to what we're looking for to start.
Any other ideas, comments? Mr. Cahill?
I was just wondering, is now a good time to get into what the planning department found in terms of what other towns are doing and what kind of consultants they're using? I know we have another step, number 7 on the agenda item for next steps for action plans, but perhaps now is a good time to, since we're talking about it, get into it, and then the board can make a decision at the end, the way forward. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
Okay. So
mean-
in your handouts that I gave you tonight, I also sent these to you electronically, I believe. If I didn't, I apologize. What we found is, on this one sheet here, Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan Consultants, we did a deep dive as best we could across the state to the list of towns that have these affordable housing trusts. What we found is that there really is kind of one key consultant. That's not to say others couldn't do it. But the one that kept coming up was J.M. Goldson, which actually did Amherst's plan and Grafton's plan, as it happens. That seemed to be the name that kept reappearing consistently across the board for these action plans. There wasn't much else out there. Again, that's not to say we couldn't. I think actually Mass Housing Partnership does offer it. I was going to reach out to them as well and see if they offer it as a service, so we could consider them as well. So that's the first thing I'd want to say is that, and then we found some scopes. Assistant Planner McAllister was able to find some scopes for us. Not everyone had a scope that they could give us, like a scope as in what they gave to the consultant for the work to be done, or worked out with the consultant, however you want to put it. And on this next page, we have information gathering. You can see affordable housing action plans here. It goes through the scopes and the tasks that they were given to the consultant, and then the overall costs at the top, how much it cost them and what year, when it was available, that could be put in here. I would say, and also some return on investment feedback to there are a few comments like great experience, excellence, and so on and so forth, and they thought it was worth it. One item that I did want to mention is one of the towns, Medfield, actually included their housing trust action plan as part of their housing production plan. And we are getting close to an update. I think officially we need to get the update done in 2024 on the housing production plan. That is the deadline. Not to say we couldn't do it sooner. The one holdup I would say to that strategy is that the census data is still not up to date yet. The federal government has still not finalized those numbers. It's not to say we couldn't, I mean, we don't know. You would think in the end of 2022, those would be finally out. So we could get ahead of it a little bit and hope that they're out and do it that way and kind of do one fell swoop. But I'll leave it to the discretion of the housing trust members if what approach they want to take. That obviously is going to take a lot more time and it's going to cost a lot more because we'd be doing the whole town's housing production plan. We wouldn't be just looking at just the housing trusts, right? That would be a part of it. The other thing to keep in mind too is the strategic plan is ongoing, and it might be worthwhile before we do the housing production plan update is to get that kind of closer to complete before doing that. So that was just my 2 cents. If you do see it on there, that's what we've discovered. But for the most part, I'd say 9.9 out of 10 times, it does look like they're standalone action plans in these towns. So by all means, look through these, take a look at the tasks that were outlined. Of course, when we send out a scope or proposal or solicit scopes from consultants, we can put in our own tasks and what we want done. And to your point, Mr. Chairman, if we want, to say something about we want, measurable goals and however you want to put it, that we can, actually measure year to year and say that we're making progress. We would put that in there, right? We're very specific in our,
Correct.
what we're asking for. So those are the two documents we prepared for you tonight. So when we can discuss that now, if you have any thoughts about it, there doesn't, like I said, J.M. Goldson does seem to be the pro in this. So any thoughts about any of that?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, were these the result of when, like, Amherst and Easton and Medfield started? Or was that part of an ongoing thing, an update? Because it would seem like what you'd want when you were starting out might be different than somebody who,
No, these are their original.
These are the originals.
These are the originals.
okay.
Yep. Yeah, that's why if you see Easton goes back to like 2014.
Yeah, Nantucket has an updated plan now that was done by another consultant, so there are other consultants out there, but these ones do appear to be the ones that when they were first starting out as their trust.
And, these action plans, I mean, if you look at it, I mean, they can be very simple and not have a lot of meat to them, but as, you saw some of them there, they were very detailed. And, one thing that, we should consider also is, what are the needs of our town? And make sure that, we have that discussion and know what we want to put into the RFP as, some of the items that we want the consultant to also think about. Just for example, you have, it could be workforce development or, part of the low-income housing, whether it's, 60 or 80% AMI. So they're different topics, but we just want to make sure that we cover and address the needs of the town.
Bernie, do you know if, you see that Nantucket and Medfield wrap their HPP and their action plan together? I believe that we can use Affordable Housing Trust dollars to pay for a housing production plan. Can you just confirm that for us before?
Yeah,
the
that's
next
my
meeting?
understanding too, but I can double check that.
Okay.
With the Mass Housing Partnership, but I'm pretty sure you can.
And were these dollars for Amherst and Easton and Medfield like 10 years ago, or were they, can we just confirm that as well? Because obviously there's been inflation and cost of doing business, so perhaps we should be
Yeah.
looking at a larger amount based upon. But I just like to express that I am interested in using a consultant to help us along the way. We have an excellent planning staff and an excellent staff overall in town hall, but I think this is something new, and using the expertise of a consultant, I think would do us a lot of good.
I agree.
I agree as well, especially, it will take a lot of time, from staff and from the committee itself, so, I would recommend, using a consultant to help us with the development of the plan.
And I know, just to add to that, I know we're kind of wrapping housing production into this. The first housing production plan that we did when I was just started out, we did use a consultant. Then we updated it in-house because we felt that we had enough information and there weren't many changes. We should probably have the discussion with this Affordable Housing Trust and the Planning Board, who actually oversees the housing production plan, of if we want to wrap that in and go back out. So we should probably have further discussions with the Planning Board.
Don't we need to get, because I'm still trying to get my head around this, this is a lot more complicated than I realized it was. I knew it was more involved than other boards and committees, but there's a lot to it. We need to spend some time, probably with the consultant, looking at what we realistically can do in town, what the options really are. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do, but realistically, some of them might not be in our reach, at least not right now. And kind of figure out where we want to go, where we think we can go. Not we want to go. We want to provide as much housing as we can, but where we actually can go, what's possible. Because we don't want to put ourselves in a place where we set goals that we're never going to be able to reach. So I think before we go too far, I think we should engage a consultant sooner or later than later if we can, and try to get going and try to just understand what we really can do and put that together. And then I think we should talk, have some idea of what we're talking about before we talk to the planning board. And actually, it should be talking probably to the Board of Selectmen too.
Yep.
But we gotta know where we are first, right?
Correct. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, I think before we go out with our scope of services, I think that it'd be prudent to update the Board of Selectmen as the appointing authority. We've come from August to today, and this is the work that we've done so far. We'd like to go out with a scope of services for a consultant, get their final feedback before we go ahead and do that.
Now, does the money for the consultant have to be approved by town meeting too?
No, I don't think so.
The consultant funds don't have to be appropriated by town meeting?
As far as I know, no.
Just the
Oh, okay.
trust.
Okay. Well, if we want money from the CPC, it's gotta go through,
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
I thought because the money was flowing through them, it is flowing through them, right?
No, I think we have funds set aside.
We don't.
We
The
don't.
CPC has not made that allocation yet. 10% of the funds from CPC has to go towards affordable housing, but the Shrewsbury Housing Authority could apply for those funds. Another nonprofit housing agency could apply for those funds. We, as the Affordable Housing Trust, could apply for those funds, or the CPC could vote on a policy that 5% of those funds go to the Affordable Housing Trust every year, or 10%, or whatever it might be. I know that Shelley was saying some of those things in the training.
So where is that funding gonna come from for a consultant?
So this
Right now.
is, oh, I'm sorry, go
Oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
I was going to print this out, and I realized printing out one number on a piece of paper was excessive use of paper. The amount that we have in the Affordable Trust as of December 31st, 2021 was $920,000, $920,507.57.
We can use those funds.
We can use those.
Okay, right.
Those are the ones that have been accumulating for the last 12 to 15 years through
At least.
inclusionary housing fees, when people go for fee and lieu
Yep.
instead of including units in their developments. So it's been slowly accumulating but not coming out. So, I mean, and I'll look into the exact mechanism,
I
counting
forgot
mechanism, but
we-
it would be a vote
could
by
use the
this
funds,
committee, yeah.
And to engage the consultant, or to get a ballpark on, the cost, is there any possibility of reaching out to them?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Just to get a sense as to what the average cost is now.
And then we would probably set a ceiling to not exceed a certain amount, and then put out the RFP, and then review the proposals as they come in, interview consultants, and then ultimately it's our board's decision of who we select.
Right. Any other comments, thoughts, ideas? I just thinking, I think that this is, I mean, we need to pursue a consultant, and, just to nail down what the next steps would be. I mean, if that is meeting with the Board of Selectmen to get approval.
I think coming up with the scope of services is probably the next best step. The planning department and myself can work on a draft scope, and then at our next meeting, we can approve that scope, and then approve kind of our timeline to go before the board.
For the board, okay.
And in the meantime, I'll reach out to, well, I might as well reach out to Goldson because I have their information, and see if we can't get a rough idea of cost for a generic scope. I mean, we'll never get the exact cost
No.
until they have our exact scope, but that's the idea, is that we get an idea of what it is in 2022 they would be charging for something like this.
Right, a ballpark, we won't hold them to it.
Right, exactly.
And Shelley might have some other consultants' names.
Yeah, including themselves, like MHP might even
Yeah,
offer
they might
it,
do
'cause
it.
they do technical help, so.
The Central Mass,
They might. I don't know if they've done anybody's. That's a good question.
didn't they just have a thing on housing?
They had something on the the MBTA communities, no?
I thought I saw that they had something.
I know they did our open space and recreation plan. We can check and see if they do affordable housing plans.
Any other thoughts? No. Right, so we'll move to the HPP, Housing Production Plan discussion, and Ms. Loss, if you can lead that.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. At our last meeting, we just talked about reviewing documents that we already had in existence and plans that we had in existence that speak to affordable housing. And in your packet, I just went through our existing housing production plan that was updated in 2019. And there's implementation strategies, and then capacity building strategies, zoning strategies, housing development strategies, and housing preservation strategies outlined in that. And I just wanted to bring all of these to the attention of the Affordable Housing Trust for consideration when we are developing a scope of services for a consultant. Actually, I was surprised to see how many items that I put in the status column as either completed or underway, which is really exciting to see that. But these are items that were originally identified or could have been originally identified when we did the housing production plan in 2014, and then were either reintroduced or introduced for the first time in 2019 at that time. And I think we can probably do something similar with the master plan if we haven't already pulled out the goals of the housing section of the master plan. I think we have them pulled out pretty well. And I'm not sure, this committee is probably not ready to comment on, but we can have under consideration for further discussion, do we roll in the housing production plan with the Affordable Housing Trust prioritization plan, or do we not do that? And we can continue to have those conversations.
No, I think, hold that for now.
Yep.
Any comments or questions? All right, so we can move to discussion on the draft mission statement. Our vice chair was busy and you did prepare two or one? One. And Mr. Cahill provided some additional mission statements from
That would be Mr. DiPaolo, actually.
Mr. DiPaolo, sorry. Mr. DiPaolo provided some other mission statements from our neighboring towns.
And I looked at them when I wrote this. I kind of put a whole bunch of the other towns' mission statements and a generic one that was online to develop something that I thought that our town and our board.
So my question here would be just the timing, whether, you know, which comes first, the mission statement or the action plan? And, you know, should we table, you know, still have an idea of what we would like to see, but wait until we have, you know, an action plan or something, maybe not fully baked, but, you know, more than half-baked, so that we know which direction and what the message would be. Your thoughts?
I kind of see the mission statement as the kickoff to the action plan. Because it kind of just sets like our ideals and which direction we're going forward.
I agree.
Yep.
And I like this one because I think it very broadly lays out what we're trying to do. And it's like an elevator speech, right? It's less than that. You can tell somebody quickly what the goal is. People can understand it.
So we can go with the action plan presented by our vice chair. We can even, you know, possibly, you know, amend it at any point if we, you know, if the action plan takes us in a slightly different direction. So I'm open to having it to start off so that we have something as to what the mission statement is. with, keeping in the back of our mind that, it might be, tinkered or adjusted in some way just down the road, but not totally scrapping it.
I think my comfort level is keeping it as draft. I think you did an excellent job. I think you encompassed everything we're looking for. If we could keep it as draft as we're going through the process and keep it in mind, and then perhaps as part of the action plan process, we also get feedback from the public and other boards and commissions and see if we might have to adjust it. That's just my feeling is to not
Yeah, that's a good
put it
idea.
in concrete for right now, but we can lead off that this is where we think we're going, but we're looking for additional feedback and an additional consultant support on what our mission really should be.
I thought I put it in here, maybe I took draft out, but one of the towns that I looked at, actually, it was their draft mission statement, because I think they were only a few years old. It was a very short period of time, and it was a draft, so it was following what Kristen said. This is where we're starting, it'll evolve, so.
Which makes sense, because, we still have a long ways to go. But if we do keep it in the draft format right now, and knowing that, it's starting, we're paving the road, and when we get the full plan set up and baked, and then we can move forward.
Great.
Any action from us on this here that we have to take?
Does anybody have any major issues with any of the language or want to include anything that's not
No.
included?
Just a very minor, just the word it says is to increase the inclusivity, say that 10 times fast, of the community.
In the community.
Inclusivity in the community.
In the community.
Of the community? That's not what I was gonna. Anyways, I was gonna just replace the word by with the word through the preservation of
Okay.
existing affordable units, comma, the development of affordable housing, strike the word through there. The development of affordable housing, rental and home ownership. Well, this is where we can get into bigger discussions about it. Programs, we say units, dwellings, whatever, and education. So anyways, that was just it, just swap that around. And you thought, Mo, what was yours? You thought in the community?
Inclusivity.
Of the community.
No, of the
That's correct.
community, I guess that's
Yeah.
right.
That was it, just very small.
Should there be something in here about, it says, does development encompass increasing? Isn't that what we're trying to do? We're trying to increase it? Does development, is it,
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean increasing. We could say we want to buy 4 market rate homes and convert them to affordable units. So we're not really increasing the number of units in the town, but we're increasing the number of
no,
affordable units.
increasing the number of affordable, that's what
Yep.
it says, the development of
Yep,
affordables.
develop,
So
yep.
if we say development, does that cover increasing?
I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah, okay, I'm good with it, this one.
And again, I think these are questions that we're gonna wanna ask the public and the consultant of like, do they think it means the same thing that we think it means? And
Great job, Madam Vice Chair.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the edits.
So we're not acting on this tonight, right?
No.
Okay.
And I think we've already discussed number 7, the next steps for the action plan.
Yes, would you like me to just
Recap?
view them, recap? Yep. So I'll be reaching out to Goldson for scope and a cost analysis on what one of these action plans would approximately ballpark cost right now. Reaching out to Mass Housing Partnership for other consultants out there as we go submit a scope of service request. Also ask them, while I've got them on the phone, if they actually themselves do, Mass Housing Partnership, that is, do help communities with action plans. Going to reconfirm that the housing production plan can be paid for from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Going to be confirming the years of the scopes for those costs that I handed out today. And we'll start drafting, or at least putting the framework together for an RFP, just very loosely at this point. and then reaching back to all of you with this information.
The one thing that I'd like to add is I'm not sure if when any of these communities put together their action plan, if they actually had funds in their trust. We actually, I know it's not a lot compared to how much it costs, but we do have funds, we have seed money. So I'd love to see as one of the tasks in the action plan is tying our existing budget and our projections moving forward to actionable items that we can move forward on.
I see what you're saying, yep.
Yeah.
And then also tying that to like, do we apply to CPC for certain things? Are there other grant programs that we'd apply to or other, what are the opportunities, including that in our action plan, opportunities for funding our trust?
Yeah, we don't have to only go through them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I believe our scope can be as specific as we want it to be. So when we put our scope out there,
No, I don't mean for the consultant, I mean just in general. We're not limited to going only to the CPC for money.
correct.
It's a good point. If we, maybe future agenda items, it's not on here tonight, but it'd be interesting to have a discussion about what, I was thinking, talking with the planning board and whether it would be better to lean when the affordable housing unit issue comes up with developments, do we want them to build them or do we want the money? Because that might depend on the strategy.
Right.
But, you know, that might be something to ask the consultant to help us on. It seems like most developers don't want to build it anyways, right?
Yeah, and I think to Ms. Lass's point, is that this housing trust is in a pretty enviable position and pretty unique in that we're starting out with years of funds having built up. Oftentimes, it's the very beginning of both happening at the same time, so they start with zero. And some of those communities do and do not have CPAs and CPCs set up. So, I mean, we have all of those things at the same time. So I think that's a really good point. And we'll just have to really make sure that the consultant, whoever it is very aware that we're in this unique position and to make sure those action points, those measurable items, as we say, line up with the fact that we do have these resources already. Like, this isn't a future thing that we hope will come in. It's here now today. And I think that's great for Shrewsbury, and I think it's great for this trust that we can do that right off the bat. But anyways, yeah.
Good, I'm good.
Ms. Loss, just a question. So the recent deals now, or the development deals now, so they're coming in, and do they have any interest in the affordable housing, or?
So Mr. Cahill has more expertise in this than I do.
When you say you mean like new developers
Yes.
coming in? Well, we have, obviously, developers are always interested in 40B. We get those phone calls twice a month who are interested. But we also have the inclusionary zoning bylaw. I don't know if you're how familiar you are with it, where even if it's not a 40B project, but you are saying a great one's a 55-plus development, right? There's a percentage in those senior family housing developments, I believe it's 15%, that has to be affordable units in it. So 100 senior housing units, 15 have to be affordable, or they have to pay us, if they get a special permit, pay a fee in lieu. So there's a lot of interest right now. At the moment, I'd say the 40B, I don't want to call it the market, but being market what it is right now, there's a ton of interest in 40B development. I mean, not just in Shrewsbury, but across the region right now. There's a ton of pressure. There's a lot of interest in 40B projects and affordable units.
So I think, was your question, when developers are coming in with a market rate project and they have to conform to inclusionary, are they agreeing to build those inclusionary units, or are they going to the planning board for the special permit?
No, they're going for the fee in lieu.
They
Although
That's
I
the
will
preference,
say,
yeah.
the board has expressed publicly that they're losing, I don't know if patience is quite the right word, but they are running out of steam approving them. They want to see those units built these days.
Right.
That seems to be the trend right now. They've approved so many fee and lieu's over the last 12, 15 years that, and they see that we're stagnating on our subsidized housing inventory, and we're not doing much for the people who also, SHI aside, they're not doing much for the people who want to live here either way, right? Whether or not we're meeting some sort of goal or not. And the overall feeling I'm getting from board members is they want to, they're not going to look too favorably on those. They want to see those units built, so people can live in them. They're not just funds coming into us.
Yeah, correct. I think that's the fastest way to get the housing stock,
Yeah.
do it now, but, yeah, it's an interesting one.
Well, sorry, if, I don't know which one you asked the question. I know I talked to Kristen about this a long time ago. You're limited, if they go the fee in lieu of, you're limited to how much money that you can ask them for, right? Per unit?
Yeah, we have a formula we work out every year based on area median income, area median housing prices, and we put the numbers on that formula and we get a slightly higher each year, but yeah, you're right.
Right.
That is how we get it, and it's basically, that's a set number.
That's a formula we have to follow, right? That's not our own formula, is it, Kristen? I
So-
thought we had to follow a formula that was,
It's a formula in our inclusionary bylaw and inclusionary rules and regulations.
oh, I thought there was some state or federal thing that says that you can only ask for X percentage or whatever, not real dollars, but,
Our formula might have been based upon that. We probably need to do some additional digging.
Right, that was a housing consultant back when this was, or even later when it was drafted.
2006, it
I
was.
Yeah.
was here for her.
Yeah, she's,
Judy Barrett.
Yeah.
Judy Barrett, thanks, she's still around, big name in Massachusetts. So, yeah, we probably do need to look into that again. But if you're asking, does that amount cover the cost of, say, building a new unit? No, it doesn't. I can
No,
tell you that right
it
now. It
would-
does not cost.
Yeah, I think,
what we're doing.
I think it's a gimme for the developers when you let them do that, because, it just doesn't seem like that, and we talked about this a couple of years ago. Like, you wish you could build something that cheap. And it's not part of the project, so this has other costs in it that would get spread out over the larger project. If you're trying to do it in build a house or build a duplex, it's gonna cost you a heck of a lot more than adding 3 or 4 onto a 100-unit complex.
And I've been approached by advocates in town for affordable housing to say, why don't you get rid of that special permit? Just strike it from the bylaw. Like, why even have it in there? And I've said it's a discussion worth having,
I think so.
And I'm all ears if that's the way the town wants to move. I think the board would certainly consider it for a town meeting and weigh the benefits of it or costs.
Town meeting approval. So
It would, because it's through zoning, so, yeah, it's.
Well, really, people talk about you got to slow the housing down and all that kind of stuff, but the thing I really hear the most, particularly in the 55 and over group, which I seem to hear more from because I'm one of them, it's like, if I want to downsize, where can I go? So the whole, and you hear about it, my kids can't afford to stay here, whatever. So the affordability issue is probably one of the biggest. I think I hear more about affordability than I do about the number of houses, adding new houses. And if getting more units by getting rid of that special permit works, then I would be inclined to advocate for that, I think. Have to know all the details of it, but it would just seem like if you made them build them, like you say, you want to build a project, when the project's done, they're there. If you give us the money, then we got to figure out how to do it.
Right. And the other challenge is, as you said, the residents on fixed income that want to stay in the town, it's very challenging for them, these times. So I think, the quicker, we can put housing up, the better it would be.
It's, retirees, anybody, it's like, it's not like just, I can't stay in the town. You can't stay in Shrewsbury, Westboro, Northborough. I'm not even sure Grafton. You gotta go west. And I know people who've done that, but that it wasn't their choice. So affordability I think it's becoming a bigger issue than it used to be, because people used to talk about it, but now they're living it. So, anyways, my 2 cents.
And how does that, the MBTA project, I saw you, Mr. Cahill, present to the selectmen. How does that fall into this mix, or is it not applicable?
So, right, so that is a new zoning district is being required in all these different MBTA communities, and there's different layers of what MBTA type of community you are. We're a commuter rail community. That means certain number of units we have to allow for per density in that new district, which has to be a minimum of 50 acres, doesn't have to be all contiguous. There is no, in this legislation, there is no affordable component. However, the way it was very clearly expressed to all the planners who've been on the different workshops and webinars is that if your town has an inclusionary zoning bylaw like we do, it will apply to these zoning districts. It's not going to somehow supersede your local inclusionary bylaws. So if we have, like I said before, it's let's say senior housing goes in this new MBTA, we'll call up with a better name in the future, MBTA zoning district, and someone wants to put a 55 plus unit or units in it, then it would still trigger that senior housing multifamily percentage for inclusionary. That's a great question because a few people have asked that across the state. So it's you're right there with the rest of us.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was an easy transition into other business. Does anyone else have anything else to add? No?
Nope.
So, I know that we shared on the handout there some dates for the next couple of months for our meetings, based on availability of the room and all the activity that's happening as well. We're looking at May 11th, June 15th, July 13th, and the 17th of August, which is all Wednesdays? I think.
All this, pretty much all the second Wednesdays of the month. I'm not sure about the 17th. I think that could be further out. So the school committee oftentimes has meetings on Wednesdays in this room, so we're trying to do it opposite that, so we don't have to find ourselves in an obscure meeting room elsewhere in town. I think, Mr. Chairman, if we could at least agree on the May meeting, and then board members or trust members can look at their calendars at home and come back in the May meeting and decide if those other 3 dates work. That'd be great.
You can put me down for, yes, I can do all of them.
I'm pretty
My
sure.
vacation,
I can
my
do all.
vacation is before that, so
And my vacation, I believe, is after the August 17th. So,
I'm good for all these dates too.
That was easy.
I think you should pencil them in if we have to change them later on,
Alright.
because at least it gives us something to shoot for.
I've reserved the room
And
already.
try to plan around it. No, but I mean,
Just to be on the
I mean
safe
us, for the,
Yeah.
you know, for the people who are working, might have to travel for work or whatever. At least if you have it in the calendar, you can see if you can work around it or not.
Yeah, if you could put them in our calendars, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So in your calendars, invite you all. Sure.
Done.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend that the trust vote on these dates through August. And then that'll be in addition to adjourning to the next meeting on the 15th then, or the 11th, excuse me, after that.
We're gonna do 6:30s.
Yeah, 6:30 on the, and then that would be your motion.
So,
That time still work for everybody?
If
6:30?
that time, yeah.
so then I'll move that the board, schedule meetings for May 11th, June 15th, July 13th, and August 17th at 6:30 PM.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
See, we got something done tonight.
Hey,
Tonight.
here's the biggest one. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Well, thank you, everyone.
All right,
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you.